Good evening from Dharamsala, India, home to Tibet's government in exile and to its political and spiritual leader, the Dalai Lama. Here in this remote town in the mountains leading up to the high Himalayas, the Indian government has provided refuge to the Dalai Lama for almost 50 years. And it is here that he struggles to save the heart and soul of Tibet. For Tibetan Buddhists, he is the holiest, believed to be the 14th reincarnation of the Buddha of compassion. Tourists and monks, pilgrims and children treasure a moment in his presence. His name is Tenzin Gyatso, and beyond his spiritual duties, he is Tibet in exile's political leader. This one man keeps the dream of Tibet, one free of Chinese domination, alive. Today, the Dalai Lama claims to represent a country that does not officially exist. All of the world's governments, including the United States and India, recognize Tibet as part of China. But the simple presence of the Dalai Lama is a reminder that Tibet is not gone. And this one man, devoted to peaceful change but determined to save his country, keeps China, one of the most powerful nations on earth, on edge. In our hour-long interview in the reception offices inside his fenced and heavily guarded compound,
thank you, Your Holiness. I appreciate you doing this very, very much.
The Dalai Lama directly challenged China's communist leaders to change.
So therefore, if the present Chinese policy in Tibet, almost like a rule of terror, now this helping or to keep resentment among the minds of Tibetan people. Now this must change. Otherwise, this is long run, they counterproductive. One way, they emphasize stability and unity. But stability, unity must come from heart, not under gun.
What His Holiness the Dalai Lama wants is what he calls, quote, meaningful autonomy for Tibet. Not independence, but some form of self-rule. Chinese leaders, including President Hu Jintao, say the Dalai Lama, a 72-year-old Buddhist monk without a country or an army, is a direct threat to China. The official party line is that Tibet has always been a part of China, and that the Dalai Lama is a politician intent on breaking up what China calls the motherland. Chinese officials are quick to condemn the Dalai Lama's meetings with political leaders as he travels around the world seeking support. In September, China protested German Chancellor Angela Merkel's private meeting with His Holiness, calling it, quote, a gross interference in China's internal affairs that severely hurts the feelings of the Chinese people and undermines relations between the two countries. For many nations, risking their economic relations with China is something they cannot afford. You have so much experience, particularly in this part of the world, but you've traveled the world as a whole. Do you expect in the 21st century that China will become the preeminent economic and military superpower of the world?
Actually, in order to be in order to become a superpower, the four conditions. Number one, the manpower, that already there. Then military power, including nuclear weapons, already there. Then third is economy. The economy also is gaining more sort of strength.
China's modern skyscrapers and high-tech culture or evidence of its booming economy, a picture of power and wealth that its leaders want to project to the outside world. But His Holiness says what China does not have is the fourth condition for superpower status.
Now, the fourth is moral authority. That is now lacking. So, in order to become a genuine superpower, the moral authorities field, China must improve. Otherwise, nobody respect. Fear instead of respect, just fear and suspicion.
The Dalai Lama can keep the pressure on in part because when he fled communist Chinese-occupied Tibet in 1959, India not only gave him a place to live here in Dharamsala, it also gave him protection and a platform to speak out. But Dharamsala is a most unlikely place to find one of the world's most famous figures. It is actually a series of tiny towns that creep up narrow roads and paths and cling to the hills in the north of India, more than 300 miles from India's capital city of Delhi, and across the Himalayas from the border with China and what was once Tibet. For visitors, the last part of the journey is a harrowing and chaotic ride from the lower village to Upper Dharamsala, where His Holiness both lives and works. It is a place where cows confront cars, and the cows often win. Donkeys do the heavy lifting on steep hillsides, and monkeys look down from rooftops and cling to cell phone towers. The ancient and the modern are constant companions here, drawn together by this one man who calls himself a simple monk. 8,000 Tibetan exiles now make their home here in Dharamsala, and more arrive every day. They come from every region of what was once considered the country of Tibet. Often called the rooftop of the world, Tibet once stretched from the highest of the Himalayas, including Mount Everest on its southern border with Nepal, across some of the world's highest plateaus. Historically, Tibet made up as much as 1/4 of China's vast territory. Politically, Tibet shrank over the centuries, and today China designates only the southern portion as the Tibet Autonomous Region. For hundreds and even thousands of years, Tibet was a mystery to most. Its geography walled it off. Visitors were discouraged. Inside a country with its own unique language and culture, the Dalai Lama grew up with little need for knowledge of the outside world. Chosen at the age of 4 as the reincarnation of the previous Dalai Lama, he grew up behind the walls of the enormous Potala Palace in Lhasa. His training was almost entirely religious. Then, in 1950, Mao Zedong sent troops to, quote,